I remember standing in there. I was with my wife. We were in the kitchen making dinner, and I had the little laptop set up, and I was looking at that, and I was like, oh my God. I think that's when it really hit me. It really hit me. So she knew I was having doubts. She was still faithful. I started playing sick. I was looking for reasons to work late.
Yeah.
If at work, if there was somebody that, Thursday night before the meeting, if I had a tech support call come in 10 minutes before I should leave, I'd grab it. I'm good. I'll get it. Knowing that I would likely be late and not make it. So I started looking for all kind of reasons. Either I don't feel good or I'm going to have to work tonight. We were, but I was still, in good standing in the congregation, still giving parts, blah, blah, blah. But I was finding that a struggle.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you made it that far with keeping that going, but yeah, this is don't
It
stop.
wasn't.
Keep going.
It wasn't really that long that I made it. Probably a couple of months. But I remember the last part I had was actually reading the Watchtower, and during that I was thinking, and that was very hard for me.
Yeah, I can
I felt
relate
like
to
a
that.
hypocrite. So anyway, I started doing research, not on abuse and the scandals. I didn't really care about that. I knew firsthand the stories of the abuse and the silence in the victim. I knew that was legit, and I didn't have to go anywhere else to look for that. But Silent Lambs, all the stories helped me to see how big the problem was, and it was more systemic throughout the organization. It wasn't just isolated events.
Systemic.
So then I started looking. The first thing was the 607-1914, and I bought the Gentile Times Reconsidered. Probably read that in a weekend, and that was it. Actually, that was all I needed to know.
Well, all their chronology, their little back bending
Gymnastics.
gymnastics. Thank you. All their gymnastics to try to squish the square date into the round hole and make it all come out at 1914. It's impossible. It's totally impossible. So, yeah. So now you're starting to educate yourself, and now it's not just an emotional thing, but it's an intellectual thing, and you're starting to realize I don't need these people to get to God. And if I
Right.
can back up just for a second, Seth, you're talking about what you saw. You saw the way the elders treated you. You saw the lousy advice you got, and then the lousy fruitage that it bore. And it makes me think of what Jesus said when he said that you would know a tree by its fruitage, right? So this religious group and the corporation that controls it, what are their fruits? Their fruits are not good things. They have their fruitage is covering things over, controlling people. So they love to talk about how they have the most love of anybody in the whole world, but when you objectively look at their fruitage, I mean that alone was enough for you to start wanting to leave. Okay, so
Yes.
you got 607 in your head, and then did you read Ray's books, or what happened next?
I started reading Crisis of Conscience, but
There it is.
I didn't get that far into that one, and I
Yeah.
grabbed the Christian Freedom book.
Oh, the second one.
And I guess I still had, and I still do. I mean, I still have a strong belief in God. And so to me, the doctrinal things always were more of an interest to me. I already knew they were corrupt organizationally. I had seen enough on my own that I didn't really need a lot of proof on that anymore. Um, and then I got Captives of a Concept and read that. Actually, my wife and I went out and bought several translations. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, actually. This was after we both left together. But I guess prior to that point, yes, it was Captives of a Concept, Ray Friend's Christian Freedom, and the Gentile Times Recon. And so I didn't know where I was going. I felt very lost, but I knew where I wasn't going to stay.
Yeah.
For sure. And it wasn't long. I had to figure out how I was going to do it. My wife and I were going to an Eagles concert about an hour away, and that was in November.
Nice. I love the Eagles.
Yeah, it was great. Old guys rocking out.
Yeah.
I talked to her on the way up there. I mean, 3 kids, so we hardly ever have alone time. I really opened up to her and let her know. I was terrified. I didn't know, I didn't know how she was, because all prior to that, my fake being sick, my making myself work late to miss meetings, she was calling me at work very firmly and strongly, you need to be at the meeting. And she was going with the kids by herself. And so I wasn't sure how she was going to respond. But she had been having doubts of her own. So I found out, like, my wife's a nurse, she's an RN, and I never knew that on all of the medical records for children, she never thinged down about refusing blood, that we were witnesses. And I let her handle all that. She was not in agreement with it. So that was just one thing I didn't know. But we just talked about various things. We talked about the silly annual meeting we had in October. Now, her and I had never really discussed it. The night we had that meeting, everybody was standing around doing their smile with the new Bible and all this stuff. And I think we must have been the only family that we just got out of there. And it was just an odd meeting. I mean, I don't know a better term, but it was very cultish. Things, they were really cracking down on associating with non-witness relatives. If you had a next door neighbor that had a kid, but strongly encourage that you don't let your children play with them, because ultimately they were going to be a wicked person that you're with as a teenager. All kind of crazy stuff. And then they had the whole doctrine. To me, I told my wife, it felt like this Bible was almost the smoke and mirror to slide in a major doctrinal shift during that same week. Nobody caught it. Everybody was all hyped up on the Bible and not realizing this major change, that the governing body is now the slave alone. I thought that was major. So the whole meeting weirded me out. We talked about that, and it weirded her out too. And I didn't know it. And come to find out, we both were. That was a great week. We had our older daughter, so Abby was 13. And really, I mean, I guess we did a good job indoctrinating her. And we tried to talk to her about it, and she was actually trying to behind our back get in touch with elders to let them know what her parents were doing. So that was kind of difficult. So we knew that we couldn't stay, but we knew we were about to lose everybody that was, except Linda's side of the family, which they're not witnesses, and they've always been there, but we've kind of distanced ourselves from them.
Yeah.
And that's because we're always encouraged. So yeah, we were trying to gear ourselves up. How are we going to do this? Nobody knew about it. Like I said, I was scheduled for, I don't know how many service meeting parts that month. Just nobody had a clue. And so we were trying to figure out how are we going to do this? How are we going to tell everybody? And so it was kind of an odd situation there for about a month. But finally, I just disassociated. I said, I'm done.
And you were still a ministerial servant at that time?
Well, it's odd. About a week earlier, I sent a letter of resignation. And it's funny, it was back in that same summer, I was approached by the service overseer and asked why I didn't want to be an elder, and would I be interested taking on that responsibility. I mean, it wasn't the first time I was approached. It was something about it I just always held back. I didn't want it. That wasn't for me. But I guess I'm saying that because, yeah, nobody had a clue about this. Nobody knew. And so it was the week prior, I sent it my letter of not dissociation, but resignation. I was commended. I just put in that letter that I didn't feel like I met the qualifications for a servant anymore. And, I was commended on being honest and all that, but nobody had a clue what was coming the next week. The next week is when I sent in my disassociation letter.
Now, hold on. Before you go on, let me ask you something. When you wrote your DA letter, did it end up being like 10 pages long and all this stuff about 607? And, because some people do that and it's therapeutic. They might not ever even give it to the elders, but they write it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, mine was probably a page. And I did mention 6:7.
Yeah, but just one page.
Yeah, it wasn't much. I just hit, the mediator, 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy 2:5, one mediator, how the watchtower was not my mediator, myself and God the Father. 6:07, I mentioned that, and I just touched on, as a witness, I can walk into the Kingdom Hall this Sunday morning and have my whole doctrine shifted on me, and I have to just swallow it and go out and preach that right after the meeting. So that Saturday, I'm preaching one thing, and tomorrow I may go out and preach something different just because somebody decided this is what it is. And I think I associated that with following after men. And
that's a good connection. I like that. That makes sense.
Just I don't know. I didn't go through a whole lot. And then the one thing I told the brothers how much, and I do mean that. I loved everybody. I really loved the elder body. I thought they were good guys overall. I think played the heavy part when they had to. Like I sincerely, in this hall, I don't think these guys. I've been in congregations where they seemed to almost, some of the elders got a bit of a weird satisfaction out of it. But I didn't feel that way about these brothers.
Yeah.
And so I let them know how much I dearly love them and everybody in the congregation. And then I said, but it's a shame that you're not going to be able to, reciprocate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put in the reason why, and I put the article in there about propaganda and how a propagandist and not how to think. Their propaganda that was going to encourage them not to ever speak. And that's kind of where I left off on the letter. I hadn't done a lot of stuff. Like I said, 607, I did look at the mediator doctrine, and that was the two, and it was all I needed, really.
Okay, so you send in the letter. Did your wife do the same thing?
No, she didn't actually. Even though she felt as strongly about it as me, and I don't know if this was part of like the abuse of my past to be in control.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't gonna have a group of men tell me that I'm not good enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna let them know they weren't good enough for me.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I did want them to know.
Yeah.
I really wanted them. I do not agree with this.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, her take on it was, she said she would just soon write a letter to Willy Wonka that she didn't want to be a part of his chocolate factory because of her. she said it was a load of crap anyway, so she didn't owe anybody anything.
Yeah. Well, hey,
so
everybody's got their own way of doing it, and I like both ways. I like any way that involves telling these guys to go fly a kite and going and being free and to be able to think for yourself. So how long ago was that then that you guys left?
That was, I guess it was last December.
Okay.
When we really left. They didn't read my letter of disassociation. I don't know why they sat on that, but it was probably almost a month before they read that publicly. And I knew that we weren't getting any calls, like anybody alluding to that, like, from Linda, for example. None of the sisters in the hall were texting her and saying, oh, I'm so sorry, or any of that. And I thought, well, man, they're dragging their feet. And I was just tired of it. I didn't want to be part of the organization. And so I actually texted a busybody sister because I thought, well, I'm going to get the ball rolling. So I texted her, had a little dialogue, and I said, well, I just want to let you know I'm disassociating. And we were close, but I knew if she knew that everybody was going to know. And I let her know why I was disassociating. And it was that same day that the elder friend of mine called me and said we have to meet. And so it had been weeks and nothing. So they wanted to meet with me, and I was fine to meet with them. I said, if we meet, I'm gonna bring Watchtower literature that goes beyond, but back all the way through the past, and I'm gonna have my Bible, and we can meet, and that'll be fine. Well, they didn't agree to that, and he never acknowledged that. So the next request I got from him was, well, do you want to meet with us just to let us know face to face that this is what you want? I said, well, if that's all it is, I don't need to meet with you.
Yeah.
This is what I want.
Yeah,
I yeah, really. So you don't need to meet with me. Just do what you have to do. That ended up, I got an email from him. He sent me an email, a couple of pages, and then I had a response back to him.
And he was trying to refute, and defend 607 and that kind of stuff.
No, he actually, in his email, he said that he wasn't even going to try to argue any of my points because it wouldn't do any good. But we had actually had a conversation. This particular elder, he's a young guy. I think he's probably 30 now. And he had gone to the MTS school probably 5 to 7 years ago in Texas. And it was a big thing. We sent him off, had a big party. I actually have a video from his school. I remember when he came back, he had told me that the school kind of rattled him a little bit, made him question it. And apparently in that school, they really focus hard on the governing body being the fulfillment of a lot of prophecy. And they go through that whole biblical gymnastics. And I think it did bother him back then in our conversation. And so the more recent conversation after I talked to him, and I hated the word apostate. So I remember telling him, I hate saying this, but I am an apostate. He was assuring me, no, you're not. You're not an apostate. He's like, I have doubts too. I've had doubts. I've seen stuff on the internet and looked at it, which was a little surprising to me. But so we had our conversation. He said, well, I can't really refute. Maybe you should talk to some other brothers, you understand? But I knew what that would lead to. I mean, they're not going to sit there. Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought if I present how I feel and I'm not willing to bow to them, I didn't care for that. But that was kind of an interesting conversation. But then I think about him, we talked a couple of times on the phone, and in one of our conversations, I hadn't said this, but he said, "I'm not leaving. I can't leave." I was like, "Well, I haven't even mentioned that." So I was telling my wife,
He's too invested.
yeah, and I think in his mind, maybe he was thinking, how could he leave to even say something like that? Because I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, he's third generation. His dad's the coordinator. His sister pioneers. His grandmother was one of the founders in this area. So yeah, he'd lose everything.
Well, look, I can tell you this. Cronyism, nepotism, good old boy network, all those things are in strong force in basically every town and every kingdom hall that I've ever been in,
Yep.
which is New York and California, Nevada, all the places that I saw it everywhere I went. And I talked to other people and other elders that told me it was everywhere they went.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a systemic thing. And so here he is, if your daddy's an elder, well, then there's a good chance you're going to, as long as you've got a penis, then you're going to become an elder too, as long as you show up.
Yeah. Yeah. That is you hit it right on the head. It is a good old boy network. I've seen a lot of guys that were elders that weren't even good people, in my opinion. And I did know a few that were, I think, genuine, and I still think they're genuinely good people. And those are the ones that it hurts me to think about their situation for them. But yeah, that whole good old boy. Around here, you can hear how I talk. We got the good old boy now.
Just a good old boy. Wasn't that Dukes of Hazzard? The song from Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah, yeah. I should make that my ringtone.
Yeah, that is a good. So is that Merle Haggard?
No, Waylon Jennings.
Oh, Waylon. Sorry, Waylon. Okay. All right. So hey, so back on track. So any more fallout? Any more conversations? You left. Your wife. I'm assuming she stopped going to the Kingdom Hall as well. You all just stopped. And things are going better now, or worse, or what?
No, it's actually it quickly got better for us. Like I said, thankfully, her side of our family, they're very loving. They've always tried to be there, and we always under pressure pushed them away. But once we left, they just swooped us up. Very judgmental at all.
That's
Even
nice.
though I felt, for lack of a better word, I felt like an ass having to tell them how I used to think about them. How arrogant I was, that I bought into this whole idea that I was just a little bit better than they were, because I was a witness and I had the truth. We were the only moral people and the only loving people. All that nonsense. So
well, what you're saying resonates with me, Seth, because don't tell anybody, but I had to have the same conversation with a couple of my relatives. That because I had done the same thing. I had kept them at arm's length. For years, I didn't go to the family gatherings hardly at all
yes.
Because they were worldly and we didn't
Yep.
have very much to talk about. And now, yeah, you feel when you get out and you wake up to tat, and then you feel kind of like an ass because you realize, they're good people, and now
Yes.
here they are showing you, and they were showing me unconditional love,
Right.
which we never got at the Kingdom Hall. It was always based upon if you're getting enough hours, if you're showing up on time, if then you got the love. So you've gotten closer with your wife's family, and your kids are doing okay, and they're able to
Yeah.
do. Are they in sports now? Are they doing anything fun at school? And
Yeah. So the first thing we did, we wanted to get the kids involved in something right away.
Good.
And it was kind of not really a season for anything at that time where they could just jump in. We enrolled them all in gymnastics, and they did that for the little whatever that period was, a couple of months. Drew played soccer, first time ever. They ended up going to a tournament and winning a regional championship.
Ooh.
So he got himself a medal and
How
all
fun.
that.
That's awesome.
So he thought he was. And so yeah, he's still playing soccer. That just started back
Good
up
for him.
last night.
You see,
actually.
that is so healthy. It's healthy for the ego, for the self-image. It's good
Yeah.
for your physical health. And you go into a Kingdom Hall and you look at most of these witnesses, they're tired, they're
Yeah.
overweight, They don't
Yes.
eat good. They're eating fast food while they're going, to the next, janitorial job, and
Yes.
then they're going to field serve us, and then after that they're eating donuts.
Oh yeah. No,
So
that's
yeah,
dead
so
on.
it's healthier to go out and do those things. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, well, no, you're right. That's kind of the witness life. And you do that. I think there's a huge amount of pressure with that because you have to perform to maintain your association in the congregation. Otherwise, and then you do feel the effects of that. You get invited to less gatherings and things of that nature. I think it even shows in the respect that the elder body will show toward you. And so yeah, no, you're right on with that. But yeah, the kids are doing good. The younger two, Joanna, she's starting gymnastics again here in the middle of September. Abby's going to do volleyball. But they lost all of their friends. But we did start going to a church. We probably have 100 or better in their age ranges there.
Oh wow, 100 kids.
Oh yeah, if you go on a Wednesday night for the youth, it looks like you're going to a middle school. I mean, they file out just by the loads.
That's nice.
And so they've been everybody there just kind of swoop, very very loving. Something I didn't expect because I was always thought that witnesses were not loving and genuine, and I think it's actually the opposite. In fact, I know it's the opposite. And Linda and I were just talking. Real love. I shouldn't have to have a kingdom ministry to come out and tell me how to show real love. If I am a Christian and I have true Christian love, I don't need an article to tell me how to display it. I don't think. Like every assembly, here's how we show love to those, and we conduct ourselves this way, and we don't
Well,
look like a hoochie mama in front of.
they have dumbed down the message so much. I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, some of those study articles, a lot of them were written by Fred Franz, and those, but
Ooh,
but as nutty as he was, the guy was he was smart. He was an intellectual. I mean, a chapter might have 40 paragraphs in one chapter of one of those study books, and it was deep. So they have dumbed it down so much. It's just total baby food. It's spiritual baby food.
yeah,
And the only thing that's different every week is whether you get ground up peas or whether you get squished up bananas. I mean,
right,
and then after you have those, you're going to get the carrots, and then you're going to go back to the peas again.
right,
And then the little spoon comes at you like a choo-choo train, choo choo choo. So
yeah,
that's what they're getting. That's what they're getting. And so yeah, I noticed that when I went to a couple of different churches. Just I didn't join anything. I'm never going to join a church, but just go, and the music was so much better, and it made me feel happy. You know,
yeah,
the pastor was at least the one that I go to once in a while, very laid back. And he'd say, you know what? You don't have to agree with me. This is what I think we should do, or this is what I think it
right,
means. But it's okay to disagree with me. I'm sure I'll hear from you later. Ha ha ha, and everybody laughed. What it is there's a lot of these Christian folks that have a higher level of maturity when it comes to being able to stand on their own, when it comes to be
right.
able to make decisions for yourself. And that's something that the witnesses are stunted, and they're like that little bonsai tree with the roots that never grow out. So yeah, so tell me more, or is that pretty much, yeah, so where you're at right now?
Where we're at as far as we are actually very involved with the church. I am shocked. I didn't think I'd ever, and we did join the church. I didn't think I would ever join. I didn't even think I'd go to a church, honestly. I look forward to Armageddon. I wanted all the churches
Oh,
destroyed, like in the
yeah.
pictures in the magazine. So I never, my wife and I both had a belief in God. So I didn't blame God for it. We wanted them to have, and we wanted to have a really supporting environment. So it forced us into that. Like if it just been my wife and I may not still be in a church. I may not have even visited a church. We were desperate for our kids because they were devastated. And
Well, and they needed the social aspect. See, a lot of these, especially like non-denominational and stuff, they have all these cool youth programs, and they do
yes,
things. And it's not forbidden to play at the church and have fun at the church,
right,
and do music. So it's a good social outlet. And if it works for you guys, then there's no possible way I could criticize that. You know what's funny to me is when I first started going to a church, they're using the same scriptures they use at the Kingdom Hall. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that? They'd
Yes.
read a lot of the exact same ones, and I thought, oh, only witnesses know about, the scripture in Hebrews 10 about
Yeah.
meeting together. Well, they
Yeah.
read that one too in passing and said, see, it's encouraging. And it wasn't like they said you have to go, but they use the same verses. A lot of them,
Yeah.
most of them. You've
Oh, it's
probably seen
amazing.
that.
We had a sermon at ours a few weeks ago. They talked about the model prayer. That was
Hmm.
the theme of it. About the paradise, earth, resurrect. It was almost everything I'd heard at the Kingdom Hall. And I looked at Linda. I was like, well, I was always told that this stuff that only the Watchtower, and it wasn't Watchtower doctrine, but it does talk about, they did talk about the paradise, earth, and they even mentioned Jehovah as far as the name. Well, they said Yahweh, and they
Hmm.
mentioned how some use Jehovah, but yeah, a lot of the same are hit on there.
Yeah, and the difference is that you're not going to get excommunicated or shunned or if you disagree with something.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to. It's a lot more laid back just being there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like it. Outside of that, I don't know. I feel like I can enjoy people now.
Hmm.
Like I used to always people that I thought were genuinely good people, but that I had to distance myself, but had to be a good witness and so forth. Now I feel like I can enjoy all kind of people for who they are. I do. I hope anyway. I feel like I'm less judgmental. I'm learning not even like with the beard, I never had a beard. I didn't know I could grow a beard.
you didn't know,
And I
you
did
didn't
it.
know you had it in you.
Yeah. I used to look at folks with facial hair and be like, yeah, they're just a
Hmm.
good person. Whatever. I don't know. Just silly stuff like that. That is a witness, experience life, and now.
Or you'll see a really good Christian person and they'll have tats. They'll be tatted up.
Where's it at?
Yeah.
Got me a wedding ring tat.
Oh, okay. Cool. Good for you. Good for you. So I remember seeing that, and at first it was weird to me, and then I realized that again, there's nothing in the Bible that says it's wrong. They want to take that Old Testament verse and say that proves something, but that means we'd all have to have our curly hair locks going down right here, and
Yeah,
we'd have to all have full beards. We'd have to wear
that's right.
robes. If you want to take all that, you have the fringe on our garments. If you want to take that literal, but anyways, that's not important. So, Seth, do you have a website now, or do you have any of that stuff, like stuff you're advocating for right now, or is it pretty much just your family and your careers, and you're just enjoying your freedom, or is there anything you want to promote or talk about in that way?
I don't have a site. I took it down once I had my site. I got to the point where I actually got to the point where I got forgiven my dad. Doesn't mean I want a relationship, but
Hmm.
I don't feel that anger I used to
Hmm.
have.
And so you
So
don't want to dwell on it.
I took my site down. So I do have a domain, JWScape.com, but
Ooh.
I haven't.
Ooh,
I don't
that's
know.
a
And then I
good
just
that's a good one. And who knows, maybe you'll want to blog about your ideas, your experiences at some point, but you know, take your time. Do it if you feel
yeah.
like it. Do it for therapy. I wanted to ask you about that when we close, Seth. Would you encourage other people that have getting out of the witnesses? Would you encourage them to talk to a therapist? I mean, do you think that it would help them in some cases like it helped you?
Yeah, I do think so. Of course, when I was going to therapy, I was hitting on a lot of the sexual abuse initially, but I got to a point where I got stuck, and I never attributed it, and I was never honest with my therapist. She didn't know what goes on as a witness in that
Hmm.
life. I started opening up more to her. She wouldn't say cult. She was very guarded on what she thought it was very unhealthy, the environment. And but yeah, it does help to talk about that and just get somewhere and feel like you can be open and not have any repercussions for what you might say or what you're thinking. It was very beneficial. I actually probably quit. I didn't have to. She said I didn't need to come back, that I was past everything. So, and I feel a lot better. It's interesting, though, that I was stunted. I was at a stand until we left, and it
Hmm.
was probably 3 months after leaving the organization. That's when I had my last visit. You're good. You don't anything that you had going on. You're completely clear right now. You don't need to come back here. So yeah, I haven't done that. I was taking, I took antidepressants there for about a year and came off all of that stuff. And and that's cool if you need it. Definitely, it helped me because I was having to work through a lot of stuff. But I honestly feel like that's all past. I'm happy now. I'm comfortable with who I am, where I'm at. And it's a shame as a witness you can't do that. You just can't be you. Can't be honest. Everything is guarded. Everything has to be the outlook that the society's image has to be.
It's all about
And
appearances.
it's all about appearance, and you can't live like that. It's stifling. I think being in the organization causes depression. My past was my past when I came in as a witness in '97. Same past, but I was happy, easygoing. As I progressed in the organization, I found myself becoming more and more angry, getting sad. Everything was a facade, it seemed like. And I think if you have any conscience, you can't hardly live like that. You'll get depressed. And we saw a lot of depression. And definitely coming out, I would recommend therapist, writing, journaling, just taking care of yourself in general, kind of looking after you for a while. Hopefully that would help.
Good advice and a happy ending. And Seth and his family lived happily ever after. The end.
That's it.
All right, I'm being dumb now. Well, Seth, thank you for this interview. I think that there's a lot of usable stuff in it. And you know what? We're just being honest. We're just talking about our experiences, and people can take it for what it is, and they can find some use in it, some help in it, and that's what it's all about. And I think that this is going to help a lot of people. And I know I've been edified by listening to you and talking to you tonight. It's kind of encouraged me. Thank you.
Oh, I hope so. Hey, and thank you too. Your site was one of the ones my wife and I looked at there for a while.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys and of course Mike and Kim, they were kind of. Yeah, there was a handful there that if you're coming out and you need that shot in the arm that hey you are making the right. I think your site has been great.
Well, thank you, and this will add to it. So, thanks again, Seth. Tell your family hello, and we'll talk again. Okay.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.